Today, I'm sharing a deeply personal and heart-wrenching story that many of you might relate to. Imagine being with someone for years, building a life together, only to discover a shocking betrayal when you thought everything was perfect. This story begins with a couple who met in college. Their relationship blossomed through the years, but it was shattered by a single overheard conversation. In today's video, I'll take you through the journey of a man who thought he had found the love of his life, only to stumble upon a devastating truth about his fiancée. We'll dive into the emotions he experienced, the difficult decisions he had to make, and how he ultimately confronted the betrayal. Stay tuned because this story isn't just about heartbreak, it's about resilience, self-discovery, and the strength to move forward even when everything falls apart. You won't want to miss this one. Let's get. I overheard my fiancée laughing with her friends, bragging about snagging a rich guy. So I showed her what this guy could do. We met in college, just casual friends back then, attending the same classes and hanging out occasionally. We kept in touch, but never got too close. A few years later, we reconnected after moving to the same city. By then, my career had taken off. A few senior engineers from my company recruited me for a startup they were working on. We landed a few big clients and secured venture capital funding early on. Within a few years, the money started flowing. That's when she and I started dating, and honestly, until now, I was nothing but happy. Things were going great, and I felt close to her. I had been nothing but fond of her. Things started to change last week when I overheard her talking to her friends about how she saw me. I had intended to go to work later than usual, but came home early because of a stomachache. I lay in bed and must have fallen asleep for about 2 hours. When I woke up, I could hear her in the living room with some friends while they were drinking. The conversation was pretty normal until they started talking about the wedding and our relationship in general. Through laughter, she continued to describe how she had found herself the perfect person, wealthy, and how she controlled me to give her the life she always wanted. I was just a tool for her to use. Her friends thought it was crazy and arousing. I knew she was drinking and probably joking, but for me, the trust was gone. I didn't feel like I could still marry her after hearing her own words. When she later entered the bedroom, she seemed surprised to see me, but assumed I was already asleep. I have yet to confront her. I am just scared of canceling the wedding plan for next April. Update. Sorry it took a few weeks to post this update, but I've been swamped. I confronted her a few days after my first post. I wanted to see if she would be honest, if there were a chance of working this out. So I didn't tell her at first that I had overheard her. I told her I had heard rumors that she talked about me that way. She pressed me to name names, but after I refused, she bluntly told me I was lied to and would never talk about me that way. Then, I told her I had overheard her, and her whole demeanor changed. She didn't know I was awake when she had her friends over, or that this was such a common topic of conversation, and she didn't know what specific conversation I was referring to. I told her I was calling off the wedding. She started crying, and I felt terrible, but at the same time, I couldn't trust her anymore. She left, and I don't know where she went, but I recognized a few calls from her friends that night and the following day. They were the same friends I overheard initially. I have yet to respond to her father, who randomly showed up that afternoon and seemed surprised by what I said. She had yet to tell him why I canceled the wedding. She had lost my trust. He didn't have much to say after I told him that, but suggested I try to work things out. She returned the next day, and I still needed to find out where she went. I don't care. I was blunt and told her she would need to find a new place to live soon. Since then, I've spent as little time as possible at home. She is gradually removing some of her smaller personal items. It was such a mess, and she kept trying to salvage things. When that failed, she started crying. I'm glad I found out sooner rather than later. Final update. My ex and one of her guy friends showed up with a all to get the last of her things about a week after my previous post. I didn't trust their chemistry, but I didn't care. I didn't even bother to find out if she had a new lease or if she was still with him. Luckily, she left my ring behind, but I don't even know what to do with it. It cost me $15,000 retail, but the resale looks like a fraction of the original cost. I also have a lot of work to do to get the deposit back from the organizer and the venue. Her mother called me the night after she left, but I didn't answer. I honestly didn't want to hear it. I've always had a great relationship with her, but she seems like her daughter. I would like to know if I can continue that relationship. I've been struggling emotionally over the past month and I have to deal with this issue. I've always been a casual drinker, but lately, I've been avoiding going home and drinking with old friends to avoid dealing with the fallout. I know it's not healthy, but that's where I'm at. Some of that has spilled over into my work. I think the other founders have noticed. I lead a small team of developers and do much of the technical work myself. My mistakes have become noticeable, mainly infrastructure failures, /CD outages, and downtime of critical applications. I don't know how to find out exactly what happened, but after I mentioned I wouldn't see my family for Thanksgiving, O sent me a text asking if I was home, then met with the CEO 30 minutes later on the night before Thanksgiving. The CTO found out what happened a few days before. He and his wife spent most of the day preparing a Thanksgiving feast for me: beef Wellington, potato salad, lasagna, deviled eggs, and roast. The CEO brought a costly bottle of whiskey and some high-end Japanese steak. It brought me to tears. I have never been shown this much love and appreciation in my entire life. I will never forget that. We drank whiskey, ate food, and talked for hours. They gave me the rest of the year off and asked me to ensure I was available for the most sensitive jobs. I'm not sure what I will do, but I'm thinking of going on holiday to Ireland for a few weeks. I've been freezing leftovers for weeks. The second cheating story involves my wife of 20 years asking for a ticket to sleep with someone else. But then I caught her cheating. My wife and I have been together for 20 years. We met in the first year of high school and have been together forever since. We both lost our virginity to each other, went to prom together, and even went to the same university. After graduation, we got married and settled down to start our life together. We always looked forward to having a family from the moment we got married. We got good jobs, and we decided to start a family. Fast forward about 11 years, and we have 2 kids. We own our home and are on track to retire early so we can travel and do everything we never had a chance to do. I thought we were living the dream. All of my life fell apart when my sister Laura was diagnosed with lung cancer. She was my wife's best friend and was resilient, always there for her every step of the way while she was fighting as hard as she could. But in the end, she passed away. It was a massive shock to the whole family, including myself. It's cliché, but she was just a ray of light in the world. My wife took it harder than anyone else. My sister Law was the one my wife would go to when she needed to talk about anything. They would go shopping together and could learn everything about each other. I was there for my wife when she was grieving her loss, and helped her through the worst time of her life. After about 6 months of mourning, my wife started to be herself again. She had all my sister-in-law's diaries and notebooks and read through them while she was grieving. I couldn't even begin to process the range of emotions she must have felt. So I just tried to support and listen when she needed to talk. Reading those diaries made my wife feel like hadn't done anything with her life. Her sister was taken away too soon, and through her diary, my wife realized her sister thought she hadn't done enough with her life. When my wife read all that, she felt her sister would want her to do more. She told me she was inspired to start living the life she wanted, traveling, skydiving, and enjoying life while she had it. I ultimately agreed with her, which is why I've been working 60 hours a week since I graduated college, so we could try to retire early. Over the next few weeks, she started doing more. For example, she started taking pottery classes because she was always interested. She taught herself how to rock climb because she wanted to free climb. And she even scheduled a bungee jump for her and our son. She was leaning into this new lifestyle. I thought nothing of it. I was happy for her because she was recovering from the loss of her sister. One night, after she returned home from the climbing gym, she was acting upbeat and excited about everything. After dinner, when the kids were in their rooms, she pulled me out onto the porch, where we shared a few glasses of wine and gazed at the sky. At the end of our conversation, she broached the possibility of having hall passes for each other. For those who don't know, a hall pass in a committed monogamous relationship is a one-time opportunity for both partners to have sex with someone outside of that relationship. I was utterly shocked by her suggestion. It felt like it came from nowhere. I asked her why she brought it up. She reassured me that she loved me, but felt like she had missed out on part of her life because she was only with me. She tried to say it in a way that wouldn't hurt my feelings, but it was impossible not to feel terrible. I told her I didn't support her idea, and that I'd been married for 20 years, and didn't understand why that was an issue. Suddenly, I didn't want to sleep with anyone else, and it wasn't okay for her to sleep with someone else. We were about to go back inside, but I stopped and asked her if there was someone she wanted to sleep with. She hesitated to tell me the truth, but eventually admitted there was someone at the climbing gym she was attracted to. She told me he had always been flirty, and recently he asked her out for a drink. She assured me she had said no, and told him she was married. But I went to bed that night with a sour feeling in my stomach. It took me a few days to process what she suggested. I was unbelievably hurt by it. After a while, I forgave her, and we continued as if the conversation had never happened. About a week later, she told me the climbing gym offered a class to start training outdoors, and she wanted to sign up. On a Saturday, she went out early in the morning with the whole class at least. That's what I thought. Our daughter was entering the age where she started lying to us about where she was going. So we told her to leave her location on Snapchat at Maps so we could verify she was where she said. That afternoon, our daughter was supposed to go to a friend's house, so I checked the map to ensure she wasn't lying. Everything was okay with our daughter, but I realized my wife's avatar was downtown. I was a little confused because I was told she was going to a park about 30 minutes outside the city. I zoomed in on the location and saw she was at a bar. I tried to rationalize it, thinking she was hanging out with some people from the climbing gym after they got back from climbing. But I had a feeling deep inside that I couldn't let go. I remembered what she said about a guy at the climbing gym asking her out for a drink. It wasn't hard to wonder if she was there with him. I was home alone, and the bar was only about a 15 minute walk from home, so I grabbed the dog and took it for a walk. I kept checking the map to make sure she was still there. When I got to the bar, I looked through the window and saw my wife sitting at a table with a man. They were both leaning close to each other, smiling ear to ear as they talked. The man reached across the table and grabbed my wife's hand, and she let him. Holding hands wasn't necessarily cheating, but it was a sign that there might be something more going on. I got home before my wife saw me there and waited for her to come back. The whole time I waited, I didn't know if I was going to confront her or try to figure out what was going on. She came home, and before she said anything to me, she went straight to the bathroom. I tried to talk to her, but she told me she was gross and sweaty from climbing. It reminded me that something had happened while she was with that man. I couldn't find any information about him. I searched the bar's name in her messages and found a conversation between her and an unsaved phone number. I scrolled back to the beginning of the conversation, about a week ago, when she asked me about the hall pass. I scrolled through the remaining messages, looking for keywords that might indicate an affair. I found a few exchanged photos and some obscene messages. Then, I saw their plan to meet at the bar, and the lie they came up with to tell me and his partner. I had yet to learn who this guy was, but I found out by looking at the climbing gym's social media. They posted a few photos with clients, and he was clearly in one of them. He was tagged in the picture, and I found out he was married with a newborn. The disgust I felt was indescribable. I've been with my wife for 20 years, and she was willing to throw all of that away to sleep with another man. I was furious and disgusted by their actions. Without context, the end of the text message chain was the name of a restaurant with a date and time. A week had passed since I found out my wife was cheating on me. I came up with a plan to catch her in the act. While thinking about it, I realized her cheating partner's wife also deserved to know. I sent his partner's wife a dozen roses with information about the restaurant on the card, hoping it would trick her into thinking he had a surprise planned for her. I waited outside the restaurant and saw her walking towards it. I followed her inside, and we both noticed our partners holding hands simultaneously. She rushed straight at him and started screaming at him in front of everyone. My wife was shocked to see me, but stood up and tried to tell me it wasn't what it looked like. Then, I asked her to explain the messages, and she was silent. I told her I was ending things between us, and she could look forward to seeing me in court. We spent the next 8 months in a divorce battle. The biggest issue was custody. We both wanted primary custody, but ultimately, we were awarded joint custody. I got to keep the house, and she wasn't entitled to spousal payments from me. Her cheating partner also got divorced and was forced to pay child support and alimony to his ex. We finally resolved everything together. I honestly don't know what to do from here. I was just with a woman who stabbed me in the back, and I'm not sure how to move forward. I've learned that trust is the foundation of any relationship. When that trust is broken, it can feel like the ground beneath you has crumbled. This story is not just about heartbreak, it's about resilience and the power of self-discovery. It's a reminder that even in our darkest moments, we have the strength to move forward. The lesson here is crucial. Never ignore red flags, and communicate openly with your partner. If something feels off, trust your instincts. This journey of confronting betrayal and finding the courage to rebuild one's life is something we can all learn from. So, stay tuned. Let's dive into this emotional roller coaster together. You will want to take advantage of it.